Today on In the Know, we've spoken to a number of leaders in warehouse management about issues that are top of mind for professionals in that industry. Here's what they had to say.
We're seeing a lot of actually exciting new trends. The biggest one we're seeing is one we've talked about for a few years, but it's omni-channel. But then now we're adding layers onto omni-channel. So where first you've had this ability to do the click and collect and look into the inventory, we're seeing deeper channel inventory looks. And then we're also now starting to talk about the Internet of Things and how that can add an extra layer of complexity onto the warehouse system.
The trends in warehouse management, they're related to transportation management. The same trend, the trends in warehouse management are very similar in the trends to transportation management insofar as the ERPs, again, and the implementations that are involved in the organizations that are getting rid of legacy systems, implementing very sophisticated, very state-of-the-art enterprise resource management systems. The WMS modules and functionalities, just like the TMS modules and functionalities, are usually at the tail end of that implementation. And when it comes time to implement those modules or those features, the budget usually dries up, or the patience is gone, or the timeline, or it's out of scope. So this is, again, an area where not only for software providers, but 3PLs, it is becoming an opportunity to assist shippers in this specific regard in helping to make the connections to either their warehouses or warehouses managed by 3PLs, which is, of course, the growing trends.
What's the big pain point or challenge that warehouses have today when they're looking for warehouse management software solutions?
I think the biggest challenge now and in the future is just the large variety of solutions out there. There are a lot of different areas that people can look at, and there's a lot of different functionality that they don't know if they really need it or not. And so also, as you're looking from an installed solution versus a cloud solution, you have this whole breadth of functionality that you have to consider. Can you do this all in the cloud, or do you need to do it with an in-house installed software?
So there's a fundamental dynamic in the industry with respect to warehousing, and it's that warehouses come in large fixed units of capacity, so long-term leases. Increasingly, with a lot of businesses, inventory levels are variable due to seasonality, business cycles, product promotions, and this creates, in some ways, a fundamental mismatch. At any given time in the world, some businesses have too much warehouse capacity, and at the same time, other businesses need excess capacity. So the opportunity for those businesses to be able to transact with each other, to work with each other, unlocks a lot of excess capacity that's just sitting there as sunk cost, and at the same time enables a layer of flexibility for other businesses to augment their fixed warehouse distribution network.
Rudy, what is the status of the use, or non-use for that matter, of big data in the warehouse?
So today big data is a buzzword. I love this phrase, big data is a big deal. What does it really mean? I'm glad to go into this deeper. To answer your question, I would say today in a distribution center, we don't do much with big data. It's we are at the starting point to go deeper into the science. We use statistics. Based on the statistics, we implement systems. Then we have typically various computer systems in place, like an ERP, a WMS, a WCS. That's what my forte is. And they just communicate with the rudimentary data exchange.
The question of how do you integrate the data? Although EDI has been a standard, API integration is becoming a definite trend, not only in WMS, but also TMS. It's more real time, it's quicker to ramp up, it's quicker to switch. It doesn't lock you into a provider, or it does not involve costly implementations or hours of work. API integrations, although they are more commonplace on the e-commerce space, anywhere else in the retail environment or in the manufacturing environment, it is not the majority, but we see that changing for sure in the next couple of years.
We need to see, I'm inside the distribution center moving brown boxes back and forth, and we just report back, hey, this box made it from A to B. We don't capture how long it took, what route it really took, why was it delayed, was there an exception, did we have a no read, and was there a jam on the conveyor system, on the sortation system. We just use this for the next few moments to support operations, and then we throw the data away. Wouldn't it be great to keep this around for many days, years, and then leverage that information and say, hey, you know what, that particular box with that particular label caused a little bit more problem. We saw this before. Today we rely on the gut feeling and the experience of the operations and on the statistics, and we don't really integrate that.
Where I see the biggest trend moving forward in warehouse software is really a convergence. I see a lot of people talk about a lot of different solutions. We have warehouse management systems, we have warehouse execution systems, we have kind of the WMS on steroids where it adds a lot of the transportation. Then we start talking about big data and Internet of Things or IoT. What we're going to start to really see is a convergence of these technologies. I think you're going to see a lot more meshing of these technologies into one solution. I wish I could come up with a good catchy buzzword for it right now and capture that, but I think you're going to see a convergence of these solutions into really one global warehousing platform. And what I really think we're going to see is the ability for companies to look from the end channel, the consumer channel or the end business channel, all the way back to their source channel and see complete visibility and be able to make smart decisions and execute on that.
So in making the WMS and the TMS software applications work together in an optimal format, the best case scenario that I can think of is omni-channel. You know, this idea of omni-channel. Omni-channel retailing, omni-channel distribution, omni-channel marketing in the retail space. Almost every retailer that we talk to is going down this road of optimizing their entire supply chain for omni-channel. What does that mean as it relates to WMS and TMS? A perfect example is this. So let's say 10 years ago, a retailer's e-commerce orders totaled 2 to 3% of their total revenues, but now it's closer to 30 or 40%. That has a direct impact on how they've set up their DCs, whether or not they've outsourced their DCs, have they done a center of gravity study, do they have 3 DCs across the country that manage the fulfillment for their retail stores perfectly, but they haven't even taken into consideration dropship vendors, marketplaces, and now you have a rising percentage of direct-to-consumer e-commerce orders. That all starts at the DC. And not only does that start at the DC with the pick and the fulfill and the pack and ship, but especially with the shipping part, you could be talking about TMS integration. So is this going FedEx? Is this going parcel? Is this going integrator? Is this going LTL? All of that routing and all those definitions can be, and oftentimes in omni-channel need to be tied to the WMS, especially as it relates to retail compliance.
Well, I think automation is kind of the buzzword, you know, that a lot of folks are trying to get into automation. We are definitely a part of automation. We've got facilities that are automated. I think the key is that it's got to pencil. It's got to make sense for both the customer and us as a service provider. So I think that when you look at what we do from an associate perspective, we are definitely in line on the people side. But from an automated perspective, if the strategic direction is to condense and combine facilities or into a geographic area, maybe automation does make sense. And that's where our supply chain analysis group would come into play, where they can really do a deep dive analysis, look at the SKU count, look at the throughput, the volume, and identify if it's a good strategic fit.
If you were to be given a magic glimpse into the warehouse 10 to 20 years from now, would you see any people in there?
Oh yeah, that will not change. My experience is I'm in this industry for 25 years. There will always be people in there. That is necessary. You have to have a great staff. You got to have skilled workers. They just have more responsibility, and I believe there will be more talented people in the warehouse.
Well, the warehouse environment might be the most challenging environment that there really is. We're talking about, relatively lower paid workers, people who are coming in and doing the same thing day in and day out. And a recent study by Gallup showed that manufacturing, production, and warehouse workers are some of the least engaged employees as a whole in the world. And so it is very, very difficult to get these people engaged, and yet it's extremely important to have them engaged to achieve the productivity levels that you need to be a successful company.
Let's talk about the capabilities of the WMS of the future. How would you characterize those?
I think the future WMS that companies are going to be looking for in terms of capabilities is obviously everything that they do today, only bringing it into a format that's ready for the millennial generation. So we're talking about visualization, drop and drag functionality, point and click, versus your typical or traditional spreadsheets of data or tables of data. You know, within the warehouse management system framework and within supply chains, you know, we talk about executing order fulfillment and getting things on time in the right order, amount, you know, as a customer want it. But we're seeing a growth and a need for distribution centers and supply chain experts to be able to manage effectively both the sales and operational planning, S&OP, of their business. What's the impact of that? Well, I see a direct opportunity for us to be tying software that helps people plan their inventory, both from the sales order and purchase order process, all the way through the effective delivery. So really we're gonna see another state of the future of WMSs is how much can I get into the planning side of my business?
Well, there you have it. Information that you can use. Information that puts you in the know.